Well, it's funny because I was already working on Cold War. I was working on that when the pandemic started, right? I just started working on it in February. And then we got locked down in mid-March. We didn't go anywhere. And, so from the standpoint of like affecting my work, anybody who's doing animation or video games is fine because you can still work and stuff like that. But, so, it's just another day at the office for me. I was locked down. Just my studio is in my garage. So
Right.
15-foot commute into my garage. So I was good. Didn't affect that. But, when it came to recording with orchestra and choir and stuff like that, that was a bit of a consideration and a worry for most of the production. Will we have an orchestra? And we had contingency plans. Like if we can't do an orchestra, I'm just gonna spend more time in the mix, and try to make the samples sound better. And that would have been fine as well. We would have made that work, and maybe I could have overlaid some, solo musicians just to give more live feel or whatever. So we were probably going to do that if we couldn't record the orchestra. But it turned out that in Tennessee, they weren't really locked down. So we recorded in Nashville for the orchestra. And we did the strings, all in one pass. They were just separated a little more in the room, wearing masks.
Right.
And then brass, it was only brass in this big room. And there had gobos in between them, and they were blowing away from each other. Same with the woodwind. So, yeah, we did all that sort of piecemeal separately. And then when it came to the choir, choirs are super spreaders, so you can't put them in the same room.
Right.
And if there's one person sick, everyone's getting sick. So we didn't want that. So my good friend Ayana Haviv, who's in LA, she's a choir maestro. She puts all the singers together, but she and I started talking really at the beginning of the pandemic. And I said, I'm not sure if I'm working with choir yet because I haven't written anything yet. But if I do, I'd like to kind of strategize how to do that now because it may take some preparation. And so we decided, we can record. She said, I can find singers that all have their own home setup and we'll record them one at a time. And I was like, I wonder how that's going to sound. And, I got a couple of engineers involved and they wrote up like, okay, here's how you should record yourself, how far the mic should be from you. And, you do 2 passes, one sort of directly in the mic and then turn the mic and do it sort of off axis just to give it a little tonal color. And then, how far you should be from the mic. And we did a few tests and then it became, there was at some point during this project, the Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, it wasn't called that, right? Most of the beginning of when I was writing, we didn't know what it was called yet,
Right.
Code name was Zeus, like it's called Zeus, but we don't know what it is yet. It's Call of Duty Black Ops 5, but is it going to be called 5 or something else? So we didn't know. And then when they decided on Cold War, which is maybe April, I want to say.
Right.
April and May of 2020. Then it was like, I have to do a Russian choir now.
Right.
I have to do that. So then I got this, this woman, Nino Sanakidze, who's Russian, who works for the LA Opera. I got her involved to do translation. So I would write the lyrics in English. And then
Nice.
she would translate them. And then of course, it's Cyrillic, so nobody can read that who's English. I don't know anybody who can read that.
Right.
So she did transliteration so the English singers could read it and know how to pronounce these things. So we did that. And then we had to do guide tracks. And then Nino had to approve the guide tracks. Yes, can you change that pronunciation just a little bit? And she would tweak all these things. And once we got through all that, we had 4 different things. When we did the full SATB, we had 4 guide tracks, one for S, one for soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and then we would send those individual tracks to the section people, We had 32 singers. They would each do 2 passes. Like I said before, one on axis, one off axis. And then we had once they were done, it just came out flawlessly. It was perfect because they would just sing the same thing they heard without listening to a bunch of people, because then you're sort of getting into a game of telephone and people start to mispronounce things and it becomes muddy. So we would just have, one guide track per part, and then the rest of the people in that section would sing the same part with them.
That's
And
cool,
so that worked out great. Yeah. And it came back and everything sounded amazing. And there's such great singers in LA. It's like same in the UK as well, but like in LA where I live, it's just a joy to work with these people. They're so good.
Definitely.
And then we had a music editor take all these, clean them up, line them up and get them ready for the mix. And then ironically, like it took a lot of time to do that, but then mixing was just so easy because you had full control, right?
Right. But so the actual final result is not a real, so to speak, choir, but it's actually all individual performances put together as a choir. Is that what we hear in the soundtrack?
That's what you're hearing in the
That's
soundtrack,
cool.
yeah.
And which track is that on the soundtrack?
I would beg to differ. That is a real choir, my friend.
Right. But yeah, of course. But it's not recorded in a traditional way, I guess.
No.
Right.
No, usually they're all in the same room and you're doing, you tweak sections in real time. Like, can the soprano sing louder, softer?
Right.
You do that. And everything's recorded at the same time. Yeah.
That's cool, man. I mean, it's cool that you can do it that way. Like you just did, that you can adapt, doesn't really matter, that's really nice.
Well, I learned so much from doing it that way because, when we had 2 recording sessions, one was in June and then there was one in August. And for the August one, I think I hadn't written, you know what? I think by the time we recorded in June, I still didn't know that it was called Cold War yet. I was misremembering that before. So right after we recorded in June, I found out, yes, this is the logo and this is the name of the game. And it's like, it's called Cold War. And I already knew that we were in the Cold War. We just didn't know what the name of the game was. So, once I learned that it was for sure going to be called Cold War, then I switched my whole perception. I had to write the main theme that happens in the menu. And so I thought, now that it's Cold War, I know what I want to do. I want to have a Russian male choir only, and I want the lyrics to be about the Cold War, right? So,
awesome.
Now that we were getting really specific with the lyrics, then I hired my lyricist, Cindy Shapiro, to write them in English. And she would do all the research and make sure that the lyrics made sense to Russians as well as English-speaking people. So, but I really wanted, my vision was that I just really wanted Russians to appreciate what the lyrics were.
Yeah,
that was kind of important to me because I grew up in that period and I remember what the American perception of the Cold War was, with Reagan and his whole thing and being strong and all that. But I wanted to sort of convey the Russian perspective in these lyrics. So Cindy did a great job with that and did all the research. And she was looking at declassified CIA documents from the era. It was really cool.
That's nice, man.
Do that.
That's awesome that you went to that level of, authenticity, I guess.
Yeah. That's a fun part of what I do, is like making sure that happens. So,
but what's it like being a composer in a game like Call of Duty? Because it's such a massive undertaking, I guess. So, yeah, what's it like for you in your position?
Well, I would say this is my 4th Call of Duty. So, what I enjoy about writing for Call of Duty is the games are massive, right? So, could be anywhere from 15 to 40 hours of gameplay. It just depends on the game. 2.5 hours of music. We have time. I typically have about 8 months to write all that. So, that's a fair amount of time. I don't like, I never felt pressured. Like I had always had enough time, I felt, because I really wasn't working on anything else during that time. That's not true. I worked on a bunch of other things, but they were much smaller. So I never felt like overwhelmed or any of that, you know. So it was a joy, really. It's really fun.
Nice.
Fun to write it every day, going in like, okay, I'm going to work on this piece of music today. You know, and I came from TV where the writing schedule is insane. You know, you got to write 35 minutes in a week, you know, and we were doing 2.5 hours in 8 months. So do the math. That's good.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to do.